Hello everyone! Today's joke of the day is what do you get when you cross a Christmas tree with an iPad? Stay tuned to find out. Let's review a little bit about solving in absolute value inequalities. Okay? When we're solving an absolute value inequality, we want to split it into two inequalities, okay, just like we did in the last video. Two inequalities. And flip the inequality symbol. As well as the sign on the number. Okay, so again, we are going to split it into two inequalities by keeping one the same, right, exactly as we see it, and the second one will be flipping the inequality symbol and the sign on the number. Okay, this new thing is exactly like what we did when we were solving absolute value absolute value equations a while ago, is that we're only going to split the inequality once it has been isolated. Okay, so our first thing we need to do is isolate and then split. Okay, so let's solve and graph the following inequalities. Okay, these are just a few review ones, like from the last video. So here we have the absolute value of 10 plus 4x is less than 14. Okay, we can split it right away because our absolute value is isolated. So we'll split this into 10 plus 4x is less than 14, exactly as we see it. And 10 plus 4x is greater than negative 14. Okay, we'll flip the inequality symbol and change the sign on the number. Okay, and then we just want to solve both of these. So we'll start by subtracting 10 on both sides. And then those will cancel out. We'll get 4x is less than 4. And then we want to divide by 4 on both sides to get that x is less than 1. Okay, for the second one, we'll follow the same steps. Subtract 10 on both sides. We'll get 4x is greater than negative 24. Divide by 4 on both sides. We get that x is greater than negative 6. Okay, so we want to graph these to show our solution set. So I'll put 1. Oh, just kidding. I'll put negative 6 here, 0 and 1. Okay, so I want it to be greater than 1. Okay, or actually, just kidding. X is less than 1. It says x is less than 1. Okay, so we'll have an open circle at 1, and then we'll shade to the left. And x is greater than negative 6, so we'll also have an open circle at negative 6, and we'll just fill in there between it. Okay, so it's actually all those numbers in between negative 6 and 1 are solutions to this inequality. Okay. This second one here is already also isolated, so we can just split it right away. We end up with negative 9v is less than or equal to 54, exactly as we see it, and negative 9v is greater than or equal to, okay, flip the inequality and change the sign, so negative 54. Okay, so this one we will solve by dividing by negative 9 on both sides. To get that v is, we have to flip our inequality symbol because we divide by a negative. V is greater than or equal to negative 6. And same thing with this one. Divide by negative 9. V is less than or equal to, okay, flip the inequality again, positive 6. Okay, so if we're going to graph these, we'll put negative 6, 0, and positive 6. V is greater than or equal to negative 6, so I'll do that in a different color. And less than or equal to 6, so we have closed circles on negative 6 and 6, and shade in between there. Okay, now these ones, we first are going to have to isolate our absolute value before we can split it, okay? So this first one, we have the absolute value of x minus 4 being divided by 5. So we want to multiply by 5 on both sides in order to cancel out that division by 5, and we'll end up with the absolute value of x minus 4 is less than or equal to 10. Okay, now that our absolute value is isolated, we can split it into two inequalities. So we'll end up with x minus 4 is less than or equal to 10, and x minus 4 is greater than or equal to negative 10. Okay, and then we'll solve both of these by adding 4 on both sides to get that x is less than or equal to 14, and add 4 on both sides here. X is greater than or equal to negative 6. So if we were going to graph these on a number line, we'd have negative 6, we'd have 0, 14. So we want to graph our lines to be less than or equal to 14. So we'll have a closed circle at 14 and greater than or equal to -6. So again, closed circle at -6, and we will shade in between those. That will be our solution set for this one. Okay, let's move on to this next one. We have -3 plus the absolute value of n minus 2 is greater than 5. Okay, so we want to add 3 on both sides so that we can isolate the absolute value. So then we end up with the absolute value of n minus 2 is greater than 8. And now at this point, we can split it into our two inequalities. So we have n minus 2 is greater than 8, and n minus 2 is less than -8. Flip the inequality symbol, change the sign. Okay, and now we can just solve. So we'll add 2 on both sides. We get that n is greater than 10. Add 2 on both sides over here. Get that n is less than -6. Okay, so if we're going to graph these ones, we'll have -6, 0, and 10. Okay, n is greater than 10, so we'll have open circle at 10, shade to the right, and open circle at -6, shade to the left for n is less than -6, and that is our solution. Okay, let's look at just a couple more. Here we have a couple steps we have to do to isolate our absolute value. First thing we want to do is subtract 8 on both sides. Okay, and then we'll end up with 4 times the absolute value of 6 minus 2a is less than or equal to 16. Okay, next thing we want to do, divide by 4 on both sides to get that the absolute value of 6 minus 2a is less than or equal to 4. Okay, now that our absolute value is isolated, we can split into our two inequalities. We'll get 6 minus 2a is less than or equal to 4, and 6 minus 2a, flip the inequality, so greater than or equal to, change the sign on the 4, -4. Okay, and now we can solve these by subtracting 6 on both sides first to get that -2a is less than or equal to -2. Divide by -2 finally. Those will cancel out. We'll get a is, we have to flip our inequality because we divided by a negative, so greater than or equal to. -2 divided by -2 gives us 1. Okay, same thing on this side. Subtract 6 on both sides first to get that -2a is greater than or equal to -10. And then divide by -2. A is, flip the inequality, less than or equal to -10 divided by -2 is a +5. So we can graph this. We'll have 0, 1, and 5. Okay, greater than or equal to 1, so we have closed circle at 1. Less than or equal to 5, closed circle at 5, and everything in between. Okay, greater than 1 and less than or equal to 5. Okay, one more inequality here. First thing we want to do is isolate our absolute value. So we will add 6 on both sides. We get that the absolute value of v plus 5 is less than 1. Okay, -5 plus 6 gives us 1. And now we can split it into our two inequalities. We'll end up with v plus 5 is less than 1, exactly as we see it. And v plus 5 is greater than -1. Okay. So we flip the inequality and change the sign. All right, finally we need to solve to get the variable by itself, the variable v here. We end up with v, oh, why did I subtract 6? I do not know. Okay, we want to subtract 5 on both sides. Okay, and we get v is less than -4. Okay, and we'll subtract 5 on both sides over here too, to get that v is greater than -6. Okay, v is less than -4 and greater than -6. Finally, if you want to represent that on a number line, we can have -6, -5, -4. Okay, we'll have open circles at both -4 and -6. Less than -4 but greater than -6 means we will shade in between there. And that will be our solution for this inequality. Okay, now for the joke of the day. What do you get when you cross a Christmas tree with an iPad? You get a pineapple. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.